Hi, I'm Megan.
I'm Colin, and this is Pet Sitter Confessional,
an open and honest discussion about life as a pet sitter.
Brought to you by Timed Pet and Pet Perennials. The world of house sitting changed last year, but many of the fundamentals still remain the same. It's just navigating that world is a little bit different than it used to be. Today, Eden Rudin, owner of HouseSit Hawaii, a house sit listing platform for, you guessed it, Hawaii, joins us to discuss her new platform, why she decided it was time for her to start that, what her time as a house sitter has been, and some of the takeaways that she loves to share with others. Let's get started.
Hi, Colin. So glad to be here. Yes, absolutely. My husband and I have been full-time house sitters internationally for 6 years. We're going on 7 years soon. And we're completely nomadic. We have 2 suitcases. That's all we own. Well, that's not true. We have a drawer at my mom's house that we have some stuff in, but we carry our 2 suitcases, and that's everything we have. That's important to us that we need to have with us. And I should say pre-COVID, we almost always back-to-back house sitting. And we've circumnavigated the globe. And I'm hoping starting in 2021, we're going to start doing that again. And it's just been a fabulous experience for us. We don't get paid. We do this completely exchange. We pay for our own airfare, our own travel. Generally, the owners will pick us up at the airport or the bus stop or something. Pay for our own food, but we do have the benefit of the house, taking care of the house, the pets, if there's pets, and all the perks of having a house, obviously, electricity and internet and all those good things.
Yeah, I hear that. And you say, you don't get paid for it. And that is quite a shock to many people to think that you're doing this and not getting paid. So how do you make that work? How does that work for you? And how has that been for the past 6 years?
It's an equal exchange of benefits. So we see it as we just feel like the owners are getting somebody to do something out of their heart, like out of the goodness of them. So we're taking care of the pets because we actually care about the pets. We care about their home versus renting the space, like basically, right? So if they were paying us, then we work for them. And it's like a whole different mindset. Like if in the scope of the house sit that we didn't need to mow the lawn, right? Was never discussed. And let's say they're paying us, then they could be like, hey, can you mow the lawn? That's a job I want you to do since I'm paying you. Whereas if it's not laid out ahead of time and they asked us to do that, we would perfectly be comfortable saying, no, that's really not something we're comfortable with. Right. And so it's just very symbiotic. It's the sharing economy at its best is what I call it. Like that's the best way to describe it. It's the sharing economy. Everybody benefits, and it's just a different mindset and the heartfeltness of it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it does. It really does take that whole thing and kind of flip it on its head and really looks at that value exchange between 2 people and go, okay, yeah, what are you getting out of this? What am I getting out of this? We can agree on that. And that means that sometimes it's not going to work for the house, for the homeowner, right? They may be looking for certain things that doesn't work in an equal value exchange. And for you, it might not work the other way around. So it does take these 2 special people to kind of meet up and understand exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah. And I think expectations are much clearer when you don't get paid versus, like I said, that expectations can be thrown at you if it was a situation where you were paid. So yeah, they really need to be clear of what's expected of us and what we expect of them way ahead of time or laid out at least prior to committing.
Right.
So that their conversation is there and all the parties are on the same page.
6 years ago, what was the switch that got flipped that said, you know what, this is what we're going to do? This is
It was really something. We were living in Granada, Nicaragua at the time. We were renting. That was our second country. We lived in Belize for a year, and then we moved to Granada, Nicaragua. Great expat community, fabulous little town, having a nice time. But Nicaragua was off the beaten path for a lot of travelers. So I started, and we lived there, right? So I knew my favorite cafes and stuff. So I started following Twitter and looked for people who were coming to Nicaragua, like travelers, like travel bloggers that were coming by Nicaragua for some reason, or they were coming through on the way from El Salvador to Costa Rica, and nobody ever stopped in Nicaragua. It's like, it just wasn't a big thing. And I would see them and I would talk to them. I'm like, hey, if you guys come to Granada, I'll take you out for coffee. Let's meet. I want to talk about your travels. Like, let's, get to know each other, and I'll show you around town and that kind of stuff. And so we had a group of, it was probably about 6 different travelers. Plus we had actually had some travelers that were staying in Granada who I didn't even know about until I looked at Twitter, and met them too. It was crazy. They'd been there for like months renting, and they had this travel blog. And I'm like, you're in Granada? Yeah. Well, let's get together. So what happened was a couple of them said, oh yeah, we just finished house sitting in Guatemala, or we're on our way to Costa Rica to house sit. One of a couple had just finished a 6-month house sit in Puerto Rico off one of the islands, and was taking a break before they headed to Greece to house sit on a boat, to yacht sit is what they call it. And they were yacht sitting in Greece. So they came to Nicaragua like for their month off to just like decompress and take a break. Because they came to Granada when we met. And I'm like, you're going to live on a yacht for 4 months with a cat? Like what? And so they just kept, it was insane, these people's stories, what they were going through. And I'm like, I've never heard of this. I didn't even know it existed. And so I went back, I went home, I went back to the apartment, talked to my husband. I said, what would you think about giving up the apartment and living in other people's space? And he's like, no, I don't want to sleep in somebody else's bed. I don't want to use their kitchen and their kitchen tools. And why would we do that? We have our perfectly little place here. Everything's fine. And I'm like, yeah, but we could travel. He's like, no, whatever, just really pushed it off. So like a week later, I started poking around on the websites and started reading the profiles of HouseSit, like in Spain and France and Italy and different places. And I thought, okay, he's got to see this. He's got to see what these houses look like and what's available, and that you can live in somebody else's house for a month at a time. This is fabulous. And he just was like, no. And then like 3 days later, I showed him a picture, and like 3 days later, he'd be like, well, really? We could do that? Is that real though? Like, is that just like one time that ad is there?
Yeah.
And we missed it, and you're never going to, like, we're going to give up a house and we're going to be homeless is what he's like thinking, like, this is going to be really scary. And I'm like, no, there's like thousands of these, like all over the world. There's thousands. And so we started talking to some expats in the community, basically. I kind of put it out to the expats and said, hey, if you guys want us to come watch your house, we'll do it for free, even in the local area, right? We'll just go see what it's like. Mm-hmm. And one of the expats on the other side of Nicaragua reached out, and she said, can you come watch our place for 5 weeks when we go back to the States? And we had a dog at the time. We had our pet that we had brought from the US. I said, can I bring our dog? And she says, yep, go ahead and bring your dog. And like within 9 days, honestly, between that conversation and 9 days later, another friend reached out to us who was in the US and said, I think we're going to buy the house down the street from you. Could you guys watch it for us for the 5 months? Because we can't move there till October. And I'm like, what? And it's fully furnished. They're buying it fully furnished.
Yeah.
And we could take all of our belongings and obviously store them in the house also. So that was it. We gave up our apartment. Our dog was ready to go over the rainbow, and it was time. So we took care of that. And we started the first house sit, and then we had a 5-month one. And between that first 45 days, we were booked out for a year solid.
Wow.
Wow. It was unbelievable. We actually had to book a 3-week trip to Belize to get some dental work done as our vacation amongst all this. People like, you have to take a vacation.
That's a terrible vacation.
We had to book time for ourselves because we were booked absolutely back to back solid. It was incredible. And it just kept going from then on. We left Central America and did some other stuff, but it just kept going.
That's really, really fun. And so if someone's listening to this and they're going, well, I'm not already an expat, I'm not living in Granada, how in the world do I get started? What are some things that I should be thinking about or trying right now if this is interesting to me?
Asking friends and family, like house sit for other people. Go stay in somebody else's house as a guest, like, not your aunt that's in your family, but I mean, go stay at somebody else's house, experience their house, and it's a huge responsibility. I'm not going to lie. And you need to be a responsible person. So you need to understand how important that responsibility is. Those 4 walls have everything that is precious to those people inside of them. Whether or not there's pets, their family photos, everything that's precious to those people are inside those walls. And it's your responsibility to take care of that. And that's a big responsibility. So you need to know that you're comfortable with that. Some people aren't. And obviously you might know that ahead of time, but you may get in that situation and see like there's a bunch of things that could be broken and that freaks you out. Like, I mean, you have to be okay with lots of different things. So I think asking friends, family to put the word out and to do it locally, like if you could drive to another town 200 miles away and do it, then that's a great experience. Like to test it out, test the waters before you commit to anything really long term.
I know one of the first questions that comes to mind about that is paying for those expenses, is paying for the travel. You're not getting paid for this kind of for sitting the house, but you may still have, to pay for food and pay for the travel to get there. Does someone need to have a lot in savings or already be retired to make this work for them?
No, we live on very little. Your travel expenses are big. You're already paying for food. That's the reality, right? You pay for your food, whether it goes in your refrigerator or somebody else's refrigerator, you're paying for your food.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. It's really your travel costs that are can be obviously burdensome. I'm one of those people that look for like the best deals constantly if we know we're going somewhere. But no, if I would say that if you're testing the waters and you're not getting paid, you need to be able to either you're working remote, which obviously a lot of people are now. That can be a benefit to you if you can work at somebody else's facility or home. Even if you did weekend ones, though, like if you were booked for the next few weekends, just to test it. You just have to see again if you like the not getting paid part, because maybe the opportunity for you to get paid is there, and that's something you want to take on, right? But you're still in somebody else's space. You have to be able to be comfortable sleeping in their bed because sometimes it's the only bed, right? The master bedroom is the only bedroom, so you have to be comfortable sleeping in somebody else's bed and using their pillows and I don't know, just it's just all these little weird things that sometimes we rearrange the furniture. Like if we're on a long house that we don't like the way the furniture's laid out in the living room, we'll move everything around. We take pictures first so we can put it back. But you have to be comfortable. Some people think that I think in my experience, people think that they can do something. And they'll either dive in and then be miserable or happy, or they just don't do it at all and they just have it in their head. And if you really do, I really think people should try it. I really think you should just give it a try.
Yeah, and that idea of starting local, starting with somebody that you may have an immediate connection to make that transition a little easier, and then grow from there. Go a little bit further out the next time, and a little further out the next time. Yep. Right, because that kind of builds up to this idea of doing this internationally. So, how do you prepare for that international jump? What are some things to be thinking about in that process?
Your passport. Seriously, I cannot tell you at a conversation with women, we had this long conversation, then they just were like, oh, we don't even have our passports. I'm like, are you kidding? You have to have your passport. That is important.
Yeah.
And then you have to really know where you want to go. It doesn't have to be full time. House sitting in this kind of thing can just be for vacation, right? If you have a week off work or 2 weeks off work and you want to go to Spain, you may be able to find a house sit in an area that provides a car and you have a dog to look after or a cat and you have a house. So that's 90% of your expenses for lodging are taken care of, right? And so now you just have to get there. So having your passport is the biggest one. And then deciding where you want to go, what kind of weather you want. Like that to us that's a big deal. We do not do cold weather. We're warm weather people. So if there's a place in France and it looks lovely in spring, but the house it is in November, I need to see pictures in November.
Right.
I need to see, is there snow? Is it rainy? Is it sludgy? Yeah, don't be fooled by the pictures. See, that's the thing on the house sitting websites is the pictures. You really do need to. They always take the pictures when the house is the prettiest, right?
Right.
So when the sun's out and it's blue skies and it's beautiful, you'll take pictures of the backyard and the gardens. But heck, if you're sitting in October and it's not, and those pictures were in May, the house is going to look really different, or the environment's going to be different, which could be cold and rainy, obviously.
Have you heard about Time to Pet? Chris-Ann from Raining Cats and Dogs has this to say.
Becoming a Time to Pet client has been a game changer for us. We can give our pet services clients real-time, cloud-based information they never imagined they'd be interested in. And most importantly, to me personally, I can better manage my company and look forward to more. And not a small thing, Time to Pet is responsive to my request for new features and modifications to existing ones.
If you are looking for new pet sitting software for your business, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of Pet Sitter Confessional get 50% off their first 3 months when they sign up at timetopet.com/confessional. Well, and you mentioned part of that is understanding like what you want out of it. Right? We started talking about this. It's this value proposition. So understanding what kind you want out. So when you and your husband look at these house sits, you mentioned warm weather. What other kind of things do you take into consideration?
Wi-Fi. They have to have good Wi-Fi. Warm weather. They need to have outdoor space. So we're not good. We're not good like a condo with no patio. Like that wouldn't work for us. And pets. What kind of pets? He's allergic to cats. So if we can't do indoor only cats. We can do indoor outdoor cats, but not indoor only cats. So if there's any hindrances like that, also the pet's needs, I can't give shots. Like not something I can do.
Wow.
So if the pet needs shots 3 times a day, my husband can do it, but we're not keen on it. So if pets need medication. But the weather is really the big, we don't need a car. Like that's something to consider. Do they provide you a car or not? Probably the majority of our sits do not have cars, but what's public transportation like? Is there Uber? Is there a bus? Are there taxis? What is that going to cost us?
Right.
We had one in Costa Rica. We were for 3 months and we were 2.5 miles from town, but it was straight uphill and downhill. It was $5 each way with the taxi. So, that's my cost, right? That's out of my pocket. So we had to plan our days around, okay, once a week or twice a week, we're going to the store. And then when we're at the store, we're going to go out for lunch. But we're not just going to go to town for lunch because that's $10 we're adding to the price of lunch, which is silly, So there's just, the location, the weather, sorry. And then what the needs of the animals are, like what the animals are, what their needs are. And can we handle that? So mowing the lawn. Like we are what I call, this is probably the worst thing I could say on a podcast, but I would call us lazy house sitters. Like we are simple house sitters.
Simple. We'll go with simple. We'll go simple.
Simple. That's a better word. So I'm not mowing the lawn. I mean, if you need the garden looked after and some weeding done, and we're going to be there for 2 months, then I will do it. But if you need everything tended to, not us. Right? If we don't even. This is the reality. Even if there's no pet. So some sits will be like, no, there's no pets, but my yard is my baby. So I need you to take care of it. Well, we're not gardeners. Like it's not something that we enjoy doing. So that's not even a sit for me. It could be a great place, but nope, I might kill all your plants. I don't want that responsibility. At least with a dog or cat, I know how to feed them and take care of them. I don't know how to do that with plants. So it's just things you have to take in. You just have to know what you like to do. And some people do it for the adventure. We had some friends who sat at an alpaca farm. Another friend sat with a kangaroo rescue in Australia, right? That's what the people were doing. They were like horse rescue in the U.S., but it's kangaroos, and they had to feed them and stuff. That it may be fun and maybe a big adventure. Not for me, but if for somebody. Simple. I like that better. Simple.
There you go. Yeah, that's a little more. Yeah, it's kind of like when someone says, "Oh, the building is quaint." You're like, you mean small? Like it's real small, isn't it? Right? It's like...
Perfect. That's it. Yep. We're not even good tourists. Yeah, some people go to places the house sit in a place specifically for the tourism. Like they wanted to go to that place. Right? We've been to Egypt. We've been to Morocco, Spain, Portugal. Asia, some in the U.S., Mexico, most of Central America, and other than Egypt, we really didn't. We don't even tourist stuff. We don't even go out and do the touristy things because it's just not what we do.
Right.
We're homebodies.
Homebodies who travel internationally and live in other people's houses. Right?
In other people's homebodies. Yeah.
Yes. Well, again, it's understanding. It's really taking time to understand what you want out of it. And I'm sure you can learn that through experience and a lot of self-introspection and just go, okay, like this is what we're up for and we're going to make it work for us. How do you make this work for the long haul though? Like, is this something that someone can do for years and years and years, or is this just a short period that people can do in their life?
No, I think they could do it for you. We're going, like I said, in 6 years, and we have no plans of stopping. COVID knocked us on our feet a little bit, but we just finished 4 months in Hawaii.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's no end to this. For as many reasons as you can think that you want to house it or you possibly could house it, the owners have that many millions of reasons why they need a sitter.
Mm.
I mean, there's just no end to it. I think it's actually going to become more. My personal perspective is the demand for house sitting is going to become greater as the world goes on sale. From all the tourism dollars that are lost in all these countries, they're going to be on sale.
Mm.
And people are now that figured out that they can work more remotely. They may be able to take a longer vacation. They're going to use that money instead of going to Vegas. They're like, hey, we could go for the same price. We go to Vietnam for a week or 3 weeks or whatever, right? So I have a feeling that as the world starts opening up again and I really do foresee that the tourism dollar is going to go a lot further, which means people are going to be leaving their homes for a lot longer. And there's going to be a lot more house sitting availability for longer term sits.
These past 6 years, what's it been like doing it together with your husband?
It's been fun. Like I said, we had to learn, right? So we did, when we started on the beginning, we didn't ask all the questions. One of the sits, we forgot to ask if there was Wi-Fi. We completely forgot to ask. So we had like this list of things. We kept a list of questions, but we just kept adding to it. Oh, remember we will not take a house sit where they have an expensive car. We won't take a house sit where the housekeeper comes every single day. Like we started writing all these things down that we would not do. So yeah, which was really smart, I guess, in the beginning. But like you said, we learned from experience. It's been nice. My husband is 26, my senior. So we have a big age gap. Mm-hmm. So I do most of the travel booking. I present the sit to him and say, hey, I saw one that looks like this. What do you think about this? And I really analyze it before I present it to him. Like I really, really, even if I have to contact somebody and say, can I get some more information about this before I present it to him? And then see if it's something he's interested in. I know him well enough to know that generally he is. I don't know how people do it alone, to be perfectly honest. We have this team, he's responsible for the morning duties. I'm responsible for the night duties. And if the dogs need to be walked early in the morning, then we go together. But then I go home and go back to bed. And then he takes care of everything for the day. So whatever, if that means dealing with the housekeeper or the gardener or the mailman or turning the sprinklers on or whatever, he just has his routine. He's the outside person. We've assessed this as one of those things that you learn too with a couple, is that he's the outside person. So when we get to the house, the owners will say, oh, I'm going to show you the sprinklers. I'm like, that's Denny. Take him. You can show me the washing machine. You can show me the dishwasher. You can show me the inside of the house, the TV and all that stuff. But if it's outside the house, that's him. Where's the water shut off? Where's the electrical shut off? That's all him. Like you just handle it. So he has his thing and I have mine, which I think is important to feel both like we each have a responsibility instead of it's a burden on one person. That's why I don't understand how people can do it solo, because that's all you. And that it would be way too much for me.
Well, yeah. Thinking about if you are doing it solo, recognizing some limitations that you may have, or really diving into exactly, okay, like this is where my strengths are, so I really need to lean into that whenever I'm picking these sits. Versus if you're doing it as a team, you can go, okay, well, I know nothing about electrical systems, so you get to have fun with that, and that's what you get to know everything about. And just knowing that, right? Knowing that about yourself and knowing about that with your partner or your spouse that you're traveling with. Do you ever struggle with burnout or with like fatigue from that process, or does that kind of moving invigorate you through everything?
No, I absolutely do. That's a great question. No, I absolutely do. I do get burnout. We do prefer longer sits, like more than 3 weeks, a month and a half. We prefer longer sits because of that reason alone. Just to get there, and sometimes, especially if it's another country, can be exhausting. And I just want to get into the mode, like just get in the groove.
Right. And
like a 7-day sit, you kind of don't do that. We take them, but we don't prefer them. especially a new place. I would never take a short sit in a new area that I've never been to, country, or especially a country I've never been to. But I do get, like, I guess it's organizational burnout. I don't know what you call it, but it's like between coordinating the flights and then the scheduling the people and, the taxi to the house. And then how are we going to get around once we're there? Because once you're there, it's a stress. Sometimes it's a language you don't, we were in Morocco. We don't speak French. We don't speak Arabic. And we were 6 hours south of Marrakesh. Like we're in no man's land, right? We went to the grocery store. We couldn't speak the language. We don't speak Arabic or French. And it was a French grocery store. And luckily we speak some Spanish, and for some reason the security guy spoke some Spanish and actually there was a point where I didn't bring any bags with me, and the king had declared on Monday, no more bags, no more plastic bags in the country. Well, we don't know that because we don't watch the news in Morocco. So we went to the grocery store on Wednesday, and the girl's like telling me I need to buy a bag. Where's my bag? And I'm like, I have no idea what the woman's saying. She's pointing over there. There's food. I don't know what she's pointing at. I have all these groceries. And the security guy spoke Spanish and had said, your bolsa, where's your bolsa? Donde tu bolsa? And I'm like, I don't have a bag. And he's like, you need a bag. But he's doing it in Spanish, which I could understand. But the whole process can be exhausting. So that's why being somewhere sit for a while helps through that.
Yeah, I can really imagine, because I'm sure many of us have tried to take a short vacation and planned it and gotten there and been like, oh, I just need to go away to relax. And then we get back from that and we're like, oh, I need a vacation from my vacation, because that was a lot.
Seriously. Yeah, we do. So we don't have anywhere to go back to, but if we're in the same place long enough, we can actually get in the zone where we're like, it's that first week with how do you get around? Where are the grocery stores? The power just went off. Whatever, and then you have pets to take care of and the responsibility of that house also. So it can be overwhelming. It's definitely at times it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Well, but in a good way, because the reward is worth it.
Yeah, because you get to be in those places, you get to have those new experiences, and I think totally worth it. But taking that time to look for those longer house sits and just work through those processes that you have in place.
Yeah, and having somebody, like, having gone through it, like obviously in the beginning, because we were in Granada when we took most of those original sits, we were already comfortable with the neighborhood. We knew where the grocery store was. We knew how to get around. We lived there, so that made life. That's why I was saying, if you do them with friends, and if you try it out with friends and family, or getting the word out to your local network, you're going to be more comfortable just because you know something, right? You know the grocery store chain that's within 200 miles of your house, right? It's not going to be something foreign. And just getting to see if you like that feeling, though, because it can be overwhelming. Yeah, that was a great question. Nobody's ever asked that question before.
Oh, well, I just think about that of like, I know I get exhausted whenever we have to do like, it's just like a connecting flight and the travel to get from one place to another. So I'm sitting here thinking, going, yeah, if you were doing that constantly, or as a living for your lifestyle, like, I don't know if I would be able to do that, because it is I get fatigued planning a vacation one time. So
and then there's the back to back, right?
Yes.
So like in Morocco, we didn't even get to be tourists because we had to be back to Spain. From the day the guy showed up, we had to catch the bus that next morning, which was an all-day bus thing, and fly to Spain because the owners there were leaving the next day.
Wow.
Like, I mean, sometimes it's really, we have one coming up in Mexico where we're going to be back to back. Like, we're actually leaving the house before they come home because we have to get to the next house sit. Right. So there's all, that coordination. Yeah, it can be exhausting.
Well, speaking of exhausting and overwhelming, here in 2020, that's kind of the name of the game these days. How has, from your perspective and in your connections, how has I know you talked a little bit about the future of the industry, of it rebounding, but what's the industry really been like this year so far?
It's been tough. It has been hard. The house sitting community came together like you cannot even believe. I was so impressed. When things started shutting down, some people were in transit, like that were going to sit in England, and they were from Australia, and they were in Turkey. When they, and then England said, we're not taking anybody more, or Turkey shut their borders down, or whatever. And some people were and you have to think financially, there's now an added expense. You've already laid out the money and put things in place. And now you have this other financial burden, and you don't even know where you're going to live at this point, right? The house sitting community just came together like I just could not believe. One girl, or one, maybe in a small group of girls, it wasn't me, organized a Facebook group to help people find somebody. If you knew somebody that had an empty room or a casita or a mother-in-law quarters that could be used, or an empty condo or something that you're willing to let the house sitter stay in, could you ask people around? And they put it in this group, and then people were like, hey, I'm in this town. Does anybody know anybody? Oh, it was just phenomenal. They came together. It was hard though. I mean, it has been hard. A lot of sitters who were completely nomadic, full-time sitters, not a lot. Several, probably a couple dozen, have bought vehicles like conversion vans kind of things. Those live-in vans, where they can actually park it outside of a house now, so they don't feel like that they're have to be a burden on the homeowner. Like I said, some homes are only one bedroom, or they only have 2 twin beds. Like if somebody lives alone, they don't necessarily need a large bed. They've gone a different route, or they've actually invested money into their transportation, so that maybe they're in England, or they're in the European continent, or even the U.S., where they can just work around the country that they're in.
Yeah.
We ended up with a 4-month house sit in Hawaii. Only by chance, it was a Canadian couple was supposed to be sitting there, but they couldn't leave Canada. But because we're Americans and we're in the U.S. already, we could take the sit. We still had a 14-day quarantine, but we did take the sit. So the community has come together, like really amazing. I'm just a joyful group of people that just really care about each other.
And to be in that kind of community in this time of crisis, to have them to come around each other and support each other like that. I mean, that's so amazing to see people rally in that way.
Yeah, and especially when sometimes it's like those are your competitors, right? Mm-hmm. And some of those people were competing for the same sit. But then for you to be like, oh, you know what? I just talked to Julie, and she said her aunt has a condo you can go stay at. But I know I took that sit from you last year, but I got that sit and you didn't, and that sucks. But here, yeah, it was a lot of camaraderie. It was really, really beautiful. We were fortunate. We were in a 5-week layover. We were heading to Europe to go to Egypt. We had 5 months in Egypt, and we had a month to get there. We're taking a repositioning cruise, and then we were spending a couple weeks in Portugal and Spain, and then we were going to fly to Egypt for the 5-month sit. And we were on our layover in Las Vegas. My mom lives in Las Vegas. So we were laying over here for 5 weeks, which was our gap, and hanging out with her. And that's when everything shut down. So we ended up staying here for 2 months. And then we drove up to Montana. My daughter had a RV basically that we could hang out in, which we never had done before, never lived in an RV. So we kind of did that for a month and by ourselves. And she had a house, and we lived in the RV by ourselves, which was fun because it was on my bucket list. I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And then the Hawaii house that came up. And so we took that.
Thinking about the industry as a whole, you mentioned it came together. What other kind of changes do you think are going to stick around or have been implemented as a whole?
I think this travel vehicle thing is going to stay around for a while. I think that's going to be a real thing where people are going to have their own little safety net of habitation, like literally a place to put the rest of their head, but they're also still going to house sit. I think that this is going to be something that's going to be a lot more. I know it's common in Europe. People do rent caravans for months at a time and go drive around. But now the ownership of them to live out of that van per se, but only temporary, right? You're going to maybe a few weeks, and then you have a house sit for a few weeks, and then you move on. I think this is going to be something that's going to be pretty common, more common than we think. One
of the other recent things that's changed in the house sitting industry is you launched your very own HouseSit platform.
That was unheard of, because 6 years ago you would have told me we would have had a house sitting platform. I would have been like, nope, not me. I'm totally tech savvy, but just not a business I would have thought we would have taken on. And we got to Hawaii and we launched HouseSitHawaii.com, and we're slowly growing it. Obviously, it's a baby.
Yeah,
it's just in its infancy. But we do have a handful of house sitters. We actually have a handful of owners on there already that have joined. But we saw that Hawaii really is, its own. It's almost like its own country. It really is. And when you realize how long that people not, you and I could drive and meet each other somewhere,
Mhm.
right? But you can't do that in Hawaii. If you're taking a vacation, you're flying, you're
Right.
leaving. So if you're going to pay the money to fly, you're going to stay more than 3 or 4 days, right? You're going to take a jaunt. You're going to make that jaunt 3 weeks, a month, month and a half, something longer, which then leads into the perfect opportunity for having house sitters. And it's a lot of education. There's, it's not super well known. There are some house sitters. There's a handful of house sits that come up every year, but it's a lot of education to the owners, teaching them why they'd even want a house sitter, because they have a lot of them are just property managed, right?
Mm.
But that's not the same. Like closing your house down and turning off the lights and locking it up doesn't mean the water pipe isn't going to burst, or the toilet isn't going to back up on its own, or the neighbor upstairs in the condo isn't going to flood their place and it's going to leak into yours. All those things that if you come back a month later, you're going to be pretty screwed. So somebody might be picking up your mail and flipping on your outside lights every night, but they're not checking on the things that need to be checked on to make sure that or in this case where we were, one of the sprinkler heads busted. So the patch of grass wasn't getting watered. And then we didn't notice it for 3 days until it started turning yellow. Had they come home, that would have never been repairable. Right?
Yeah.
So it's little things.
What's it been like getting the word out about it? How has that been?
I built the site myself. So I literally all the back end and the messaging and I use software, but I plugins for WordPress, but I did it all myself. So it was 3 weeks. It was very intense. Like it was, I had never done such a big project before. And I'm pretty proud of it, but it needs help, but I have somebody I'm hiring to do just make it a little bit prettier. But so I got some burnout. Like, I don't know if you've done that with like projects, like where you just invest everything into it. And then you're just like, oh my gosh, just let me step away.
Yeah.
Please, I need to not think about that. So I was burnt out for a couple weeks after I really took it. But we have some print media advertising we're paying for in Hawaii that's circulating. And we're using Facebook. I've had a couple Facebook ads running, and I've been able to target the audience of owners. It's going well. It's being well received. I have more work to do. So
Sure.
I think the house sitters are excited because who doesn't want to go to Hawaii, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like there's no reason. I better warn them. It's kind of expensive, but there's going to be all kinds of sales on that too, like getting airfare, and things like that. But it's getting the owners. It really is. I'm not new to the house sitting platform, and HouseSit Match and HouseSit Mexico have both been my clients, and I've worked the back end with them and worked the marketing and stuff like that with them. So I'm not new to the whole process. It's not completely foreign to me. I should lay that out, to be honest, right from the get-go. So I'm not completely. So it wasn't overwhelming in terms of I know what needs to be done.
Yeah.
I just need to make sure I keep doing it and doing it consistently.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Well, notice what you did is you noticed that there was a need for that, or there was a unique opportunity to provide a very specific targeted house match service with house sitters in Hawaii specifically. And now building that out, helping educate people, not just potential house sitters about it, but also more important, not more importantly, but really importantly is the homeowners going, this is something that you can have, and that is something that you can a service that will be provided to you and that you can use.
And that's the thing is that they don't have there's obviously pet sitters and like your main audience of pet sitters, people who get paid, they are there, but they are limited because everything is generally a drive, right? So when we were on the Big Island, we're on the Kona side, but Hilo's 2 hours away. You can't hire me to go do Hilo.
Yeah.
Like I'd have to have a crew over there that can handle it. And who knows at this point, people are moving in every direction. Nobody's really staying still. So yeah, it's just a matter of getting the word spread more and educating. This is continuously educating. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. We figured out that the population of Hawaii is equal to the expat population of Mexico. And HouseSit Mexico has been Alex has been very successful with HouseSit Mexico. It's a great platform. And when we compare the two, we know that all the people don't travel, obviously. But when we looked at the demographic, we did some research in the demographics and stuff, and we found that we feel that if we could tap into a small portion of that market, we can have a successful business and provide some really good sits for the house sitters.
Yeah. Well, so walk us through how that process works on HouseSit Hawaii from a house sitter perspective.
So they join and create a profile. So you add some pictures, you talk about yourself, really about what benefits that you bring to the table. Maybe it's something in your past career, the fact that you were a homeowner and a pet owner, your history is maybe pet sitting, right? Unless if you're new, you say you're new, but you have pets. Most people that are pet sitters or house sitters with pets have had pets. But if you're a previous homeowner, renter, what you talk about that, your career generally is a good thing to talk about, because often if maybe you're just a teacher, not just a teacher, God forbid, teachers are angels. You're a teacher, but maybe the owner's a teacher too, or a retired teacher, right? So you have something in common. So you try to get a good outline of what you can provide and who you are as a person. Throw some pictures in there, and then they submit that. And then when the owners post a sit, so the owners do the same thing. When they join, and they list their sit, and they have a whole bunch of questions to ask. And we've given them questions to ask to build out those sits so that it entices the sitters, because it's like a sell on both sides, right? The owner is selling their home, like I really want you to come watch my pets. They're really amazing, right? And he's such a lovable dog, and it's a great house, and then the sitters are like, but we're really good people, and we can really do a good job. Like, so it's like these two sales pitches, right? It's almost so then when that's posted. When the sit's approved, we look at it and just make sure everything's filled out. And then once it's posted, the house sitter automatically gets an email that goes out to them and says, "Hey, only people that are registered on the site get the email that says, 'Hey, a house sit's posted. Take a look at it.' Basically, here it is." And then they look at it and they can just apply. They literally just send a message. "We'd like to talk to you about the sit. We think we'd be a great fit. Those dates work for me." And then they apply, and then it goes into private messaging. So then the owners and the sitter can put message back and forth and connect.
I often describe the meet and greet process for pet sitting as one of the most awkward speed dating events of your life, because you do, and it sounds very similar to this of like, I want you to like me, and you want me to like you, and we're trying to figure out if we're going to jive and whether this is going to work for us.
That is so it. And people don't realize that. Like, they're like, the owners don't realize it until they're writing out the bio, and like, "Oh no," the husband would be like, "No, don't say that, because that doesn't sound good. Nobody want to house it if they knew that the cat had diarrhea all the time, or whatever. Like, be careful what you say. We want it to sound good. We want them to come here." And then it really is. That's exactly what it is. It's the most awkward relationship, the start of a relationship that you could ever have. And then generally they meet by video. That's generally the next thing. But the one thing I can tell people is you got to trust your gut. This is the thing we've learned the most, is you really need to trust your gut. If it doesn't smell like a rose, it's not a rose. You've really got to if you get a bad feeling, or you get like, you feel like they're not giving you all the information, or the way that they talk. We had one sit in Thailand. It was a husband and wife. And every conversation we had with her was I. She never mentioned him. Like, never said we. It was I do this, I this, and I. And we're like, is he not leaving? Because she's like, "I'm traveling on these days," and we knew it was a husband wife. Like, she specifically had said that her husband, but it was all. And so we actually at one point were like, "Is it just going to be us there, or is he?" You haven't said anything. And it was really weird. Like, something was off. And we've had a few other ones, but the red flags, if something, just like you said, with the way that they use the word quaint, right? If you have to use your brain and interpret things sometimes, and if it just doesn't jive, you just back away, because it's okay to say no.
Pet Perennials makes it easy as 1, 2, 3 to send a heartfelt condolence gift directly to someone with a broken heart. They have this awesome direct-to-client gift service that takes the effort off of us and ensures a thoughtful, personalized sympathy gift reaches our client or employee. All gift packages include a handwritten card, colorful gift wrap, and shipping fees across the U.S. and Canada. They'll be releasing an array of milestone gifts and greeting cards throughout the rest of this year that can be sent to celebrate birthdays, extend get well wishes, and to welcome new and rescued pets. They also have a few gift options in case you need to send a sympathy gift in memory of a special human client. If you're interested, register for a free account to receive discounted package pricing rather than pay consumer prices. Since the service is leveraged on an as-need basis, there are no monthly or annual obligation or minimum purchases. Learn more and register by going to petperennials.com/pages/GPS or click the link in the show notes. You'll get a unique coupon code to save $2 off any packages you send in your first 90 days.
That goes into an idea of of safety in this kind of transfer. So what advice would you give to somebody if they have a concern of being safe when traveling and taking on these kind of sits?
Be diligent. Just be respectful of your own space and be diligent. We just came back. We just went through 3 airports and we're just about Mexico. We're going into, and we have 2 air transfers and overnight in a hotel. And then we get to where we're going to be. And you just have to be diligent. You have to be respectful of your space. Don't expect other people to take care of you. Be self-responsible. You don't carry your wipes, do your sanitation, just do what you feel you're doing the best for yourself. I personally, because my husband's of elderly age, older, I shouldn't say elderly age, he's older. I'm, and he has underlying conditions. So I'm very cognizant. Like he gets on this, I tell him, I'm like, I'm going to tell you today, because tomorrow when you get in that plane seat, I want you to sit down and put your hands up, put them up, high fives. And I just wipe everything. I wipe down the seat buckle. I'm like, that 30 seconds it took me to wipe everything down makes me feel better.
Sure.
I don't care if it makes him feel better or not, but it makes me feel better that I did my due diligence, right? Mm-hmm. I took self-responsibility for our space. Things are crowded. The airports were crowded. I was shocked. Oakland Airport and Vegas Airport was crowded.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. And whether people are mindful of their masks or not wasn't really relevant because everybody has a personal opinion, but it was just busy. So we had to make sure we kept our space. Like in the bathroom, when you get in line for women, because we always have a line, right? You just need to keep your distance. Like you don't have to crowd up on somebody. Even if the lady behind you is crowded up on you, you keep your distance. Like do your best to be self-responsible. I think that's the most that everybody can do. We did, on the flip side, we did have friends that just traveled from Mexico to France via New York, and they're heading to Crete this week coming up. And she said Mexico, so far, everything she's seen, Mexico is handling the sanitation better than anything else she's seen so far. So
wow.
I was happy to hear that.
Yeah, since you're going in, right?
Yeah. Woohoo! So we're going to spend the winter there. But I was really happy to hear that.
That touches back on that idea of just trusting your gut in all things, and trusting your gut in accepting a sit and communicating with people, looking for those red flags, trusting your gut while you're traveling. What's going to be safe for you? What's going to be safe for your traveling partner? It just all the way through, understanding that when that little voice starts talking or those little hairs start coming on the back of your neck, it's time to reassess the situation, step back and see what you need to do.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to push the pause button and, like you said, and step back. Don't be pressured or feel like you have to do something that isn't make you feel comfortable, because you do not. It's your life and you do not have to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable. I really think it's an age of self-responsibility. I think the more people that can be responsible for themselves, it is going to continue going for the next few years.
It really just thinking about that self-responsibility in all things, taking responsibility for that, not just recognizing that I have a role in this, but then taking that responsibility in your actions and the way you communicate. Like it's both recognizing and then acting on it. Absolutely.
Yep. I agree. And it's something people forget about, right? You just kind of get in your own little bubble. And then once you get in the space, we're a society of peer pressure. There's no doubt about it. You know, some of the nicest cars around. Everybody on the street has a new car. You're going to want a new car. I mean, it's just we've been in the U.S. We're commercially driven, like by what everybody else is doing, and you just have to. When you travel outside the U.S., especially, you get outside the little bubble, you realize that you just don't have to follow that. But when you get around more people,
Right.
you know, you're at a year ago, you're at a concert and you're all gathered, packed together to go into the place. Well, I'm telling you, the airport, we were in lines of people. We were in crowds of people that I was uncomfortable with. So I literally flared my elbows up and just kind of made myself a circle, like, back the hell away from me. Like, I don't need you so close. You know, you just need to get away from me. And if you don't like that, that's your problem. But this is my personal space, and I'm going to take responsibility for it. Yeah. I mean, obviously I wasn't a smart ass about it, but I wasn't rude. I just was saying, hold on, you know, this is not the old way. This is our new way. So, yeah.
Well, not feeling self-conscious to do that, to make that statement, because you mentioned, like, this is about getting out of our bubble of my bubble of what I think my world is. That's one of the things that international house sit and traveling is all about, is getting outside of that bubble and putting yourself in new situations, experiencing new things, meeting new people, and seeing the globe, but recognizing that you still have personal agency about it and you still have a personal responsibility for yourself and people around you.
Absolutely. Well said. That was very well said. That's exactly what that's about.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
You know, people are listening and thinking that this is something that they're interested in. And we've already talked about some steps that they can take to get their feet wet. But, you know, what are some of your favorite resources for this field, this industry, that people can go and check out, listen to, or read, or get in contact?
Well, I do think you should look at the websites. Like HouseSit Mexico and HouseSit Match are probably our two favorite. But you should actually browse. There's other simple ones, Nomador, Mind My House. We're not big fans of Trusted, so it's just too competitive. There's a lot of other sites out there that are not as competitive. But you need to look at what's out there and dream. I mean, start dreaming. Like, look at it and see if you can actually. If any of it excites you, right? And you know, you can do a lot of things in the world without actually doing them. And this is one of those things that you can actually step into it just a little bit and get your toes wet just by looking. Yeah. Because when you look, you might be like, oh my God, I would never do that, right? Just from us talking, you might be excited about it. But when you read, like, they say responsibilities of sitter, and you start looking at those and you go, oh, this is just not for me. Then you don't, but it may open up your eyes to start dreaming about, hey, you know, we can, like I said, we can take that 2 weeks vacation and go to Spain and have a house sit and not pay for lodging, and we have to watch the dog. So you have some responsibility, but that doesn't mean you don't have a car, and you can still go out to the beach for 3 hours at a time and come back or something. I mean, you can still have a great time seeing something. Sits come up in Rome, obviously not right now, but downtown London, Paris, France, apartments in Paris, France. I mean, can you imagine, like, what are you going to pay to stay in Paris? But if you can spend, you know, sometimes they're really short, which is don't get filled because people are transitioning. They want the longer sits, but it may fit you perfectly. You might go to Italy for 5 days and then Paris for 5 days, and you made yourself a great vacation.
Yeah.
Now, you might, like you said, you might get a little exhausted from all the planning and the nuances of getting all the fine tuning everything. But you're going to get to see it at no cost for lodging. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, I love that first step. Dream, and then just start browsing. You know, window shopping doesn't really have that big of an impact, but it'll give you some idea of whether that's going to work for you, and it gives you a little bit more exposure to what that world is like. And you can read about what those responsibilities are and say, "Oh, is that something I could do? Could I see myself doing that?" Kind of try on those different hats and see what's going to work best for you.
Exactly. I mean, you do it on Amazon, right? You browse on Amazon looking at things you may never buy. Yeah. Why not look at travel? You may never do it, but why not look at it?
Yeah, exactly. Why not an apartment in Rome, right? Why not?
Exactly. Except for not right now.
Not right now. Yes,
but next year, I honestly do. I do think that the once things open up, I think that the bubble, I think there's going to be homes that are vacant. And people are going to want people in them because they just don't want them vacant, even if it's like second homes, right? They have their second home somewhere, and they just don't want it sitting vacant. We've been in Puerto Vallarta. We've been offered an apartment, and they just don't want it sitting vacant. It's vacant right now, and she's like, "You can sit there. You can stay there as long as you want. No responsibility. We'll pay electric if we stay long term." But she's like, basically, we're house sitting with no pets, and they'll take care of everything. But they just don't want that apartment sitting vacant, and because there's no tourism, it's vacant. There's just I really think over the next 6 to 8 months, as things unwind, the world's going to be a really different place for traveling. And a better place for people to travel to.
Eden, this has been a really wonderful conversation. I'm really thankful that you joined us today and have been sharing about experiences, how to get involved, and the really exciting new platform that you've started. So tell us how to check that out and get in touch with you if people have more questions and want to learn more about what the life of a international traveling house sitter is.
So our website is reallytrulyliving.com, which obviously makes sense, right? And then HouseSitHawaii.com is the other site. But on Really Truly Living, you can absolutely contact me. There's links to the Facebook pages. The House in Hawaii obviously has a link there. Yeah, anybody. Honestly, I'm always open to talk to people and spend as much time as I can to help them see if there's something that fits with them. If it's something they think they could do, if they want to make the jump, where should they start? That's usually the biggest question. Where do I start? Like, where do I go? And if you can't go local and you want to go somewhere that's not local, you want to really take a vacation, I would say for the U.S., the continental U.S., I would say Mexico is your best bet because it's open right now, but it's easy to get to. It's easy to get back. You get a 6-month visa on arrival, so you're not stuck, and it's very inexpensive. Getting around is good, and buses and planes and all that stuff is great. So, but yeah, I'm always happy to talk to people. They can reach out anytime they want any questions.
And I'll have links to everything that we've talked about and the sites that you've mentioned and some of those resources listed as well. So I'll include that in the show notes and on the website too, so people can use that whenever they're ready to start looking and start making that jump. Again, want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and your schedule to come and talk and share about this today. It's been a real pleasure.
So thank you, Colin. I really appreciate you having me on. I really do.
It may seem weird to talk about international travel house sitting as we're not quite out of the woods yet in this pandemic, but I think it's really important right now to start considering that if you have ever been interested in internationally traveling or just house sitting in general, that now is the best time to start looking, to start seeing what's going to interest you. And just as Eden said, to start dreaming and thinking about all of the possibilities. What we have as professional pet sitters and dog walkers is that we have a lot of transferable skills into this exact market, into the real needs of house owners and pet owners across the globe, and that it can be an opportunity for us to start branching out and at least trying something new and trying something different. And I really like the spirit that Eden brings to that of just try it and see if it's going to be something that works for you. We want to thank our sponsors, Time to Pet and Pet Perennials, for making this week's show possible. And thank you for listening this week. Thank you for all that you share. From the bottom of our hearts, we can't tell you much how we appreciate you listening and being a part of this podcast. We will be back again soon.